All right, looks like we're live. Let's see, is Amar here? So let me go get my other computer, folks, so I can see what the comments say. Hold on, I'll be right back. Oh, hey, boys. Hey, boys. Yeah, hi, Papa. Wee, hi, Benny. You guys wrestling? You guys wrestling? Wrestle away, everybody. Wrestle away. Yeah. This episode brought to you by the Defending Gun Rights, Gun Owners of Maine. Gun Owners of Maine. I'm just, they're not really sponsoring this, but that's a pretty live one. Oh, all right, man. Hey, can you all? Come on, man. Oh, Fetty, cray. Hey, everybody. Yep. All right, sweet. All right. Cool. Let me just log in here. Waiting on a Mar here. Where's Can you see me? Hear me. That's what it sounds like when I say, can you see and hear me? Remember that song by The Who? And the real Who, the good guys, not the evil Who, if you know what I'm talking about. The evil Who. I'm talking about the Who with Roger Daltrey, John Entwistle, Keith Moon, and Pete Townsend. Not the Ted Rose, whatever that clown's name was. Roy, we got Marilyn in the house, Mark, Nancy, Bill from Georgia, Ward, Cape Paso, Patty J in the house, and BD from upstate New York. Where you at in upstate New York, BD? Come on, man. There we go. All right. Waiting on. We're gonna get this. Make sure Amar behaves himself today. That's a tough one. That's a tough one, Patty. He's out of control. Freaking Amar, out of control. Actually, he was driving with his kids the other day. He's got two little girls, I think 3 and 5. And he said, he told me, hey, Josh, I got my daughters in the car and you're on speakers. You know, so for me to behave, anyway, long story short, I made some funny noises like, I'm big on me, Josh. And they all thought that they got a kick out of it. I can make 3 to 5-year-old kids laugh, but ask my wife to laugh at one of my jokes. Not happening. Not happening, man. Yeah, right on. Look at that. Only 2 things in Texas, steers, and I won't say the other thing. And I don't see no horns. Oh, my goodness. Only 2 things in Texas, steers and something else, and I don't see any horns. I'm sure there's someone who says, ah! It's called being a joke, man. Pull the stick out of your butts and laugh, everybody. My goodness. There we go. There's Amar. Okay, I'm going to bring up Amar. All right, Mar, you're on there. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Nice jacket there. Patagonia, whatever.
It's a chilly 55 degrees in San Diego.
We got my man from Canton, New York. Is Canton up by it's by Watertown, isn't it? There, BD. He says snowy and cold up there.
They probably got 2 feet of snow, I believe.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Did you all get 2 feet of snow in San Diego?
We went to the local mountains. It's called the Laguna Mountains here. It's about maybe 40 minutes outside of San Diego.
All right.
And I mean, can you see that? Does that come across?
Oh, wow. No doubt. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wait. It's just, I mean, again, skiing stuff up there?
I mean, this is why, about 15, 18 inches of snow.
Whoa. It's not man-made. That's real snow from the sky.
That's real. That's the Earth's snow.
That's crazy, man. Is that?
Hey, there's somebody from San Diego as well,
yeah.
Alan.
Yeah, right on.
We should ask Alan. Did he go to Mount Laguna?
Mount Laguna. Do you hear that?
Mount Laguna, Big Bear. It's where all the snow was.
What? Is it crazy to drive up there or what? You know what I'm saying? Like traffic all over the place?
Yeah, so I mean, like most mountain towns, most people don't know how to drive with chains and stuff like that on, or know how to put chains on. Luckily, we have a 4x4, so and we left early, so we got to bypass a lot of that mess.
Well, there's a lot of people on the side just broken down and stuff, or
Yeah,
right.
you know, if you don't put your chains on your car on correctly,
Yeah.
like they can snap off.
Really?
Yeah.
Do
you have a 4x4?
Huh?
Do you have a 4x4?
Oh, yeah.
What type of car does your car have 4-wheel drive?
Front wheel drive. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't snow. I mean, yeah, we got front. Oh, well, actually, no, it is. Actually, I don't know. It's all wheel drive. I think it's all wheel drive, Amar. I mean, you don't have chains on your cars in California, do you? I mean,
you have to carry. It's the law. You have to carry them.
Chains on your cars in California?
If you're going in the snow, you have to keep chains in your car. Doesn't mean you have to put them on. You just have to keep them. And they have this like ranking. It's like R1, R2, R3. Depending on that, you know, there's different requirements.
Oh man, I love California. Is there anything they don't require? Tell me that, and then I'll do that. You know. All right, let me real quick. I'm just going to make sure we're being monetized here. Hey, folks, if y'all could subscribe to Amar's channel. Yes, we are in chains in California, says DK. Right on. There's my man, 6 something, but he says he got his 2008 Ford F-150. Amar, what I tell people all the time, I said, I know you're ready to retire if your wife drives a 2013 Toyota Camry and you drive a 2007 Ford F-150. There's a certain mentality that says, I don't need a fancy schmancy good time rock and roll car. I can just drive.
I got a Ford Expedition, and the only reason we have it is because of the kids get to play in the back. I mean, it's so big.
Well, when you have kids, it's a whole different story. You know what I'm saying? But all right, let me just so it's Client First Cap is your YouTube channel, right, Amar?
Yep.
All right, so subscribe if you would, folks, to Client First Cap. Put it.
Well, the channel is called Client First Capital Learning.
Okay.
But the title is Client First Cap. Yeah.
All right, so that's Amar's channel. I just put that on there. Please subscribe. I'm trying to build his channel up, and Amar is going to do 2 to 3 videos a week, which he promised me, and I told him we're going to hold him accountable. So if you can subscribe to his channel and get on him like white on rice and say, Mark, come on, man, you're supposed to be doing 2 to 3 videos a week. It's unacceptable not to, if that makes sense. All right, so let me just make sure. And you're not. And once you hit 1,000, you'll get some of that sweet, sweet YouTube money, Amar. Sweet, sweet YouTube money. All right. So what we want to talk about again here today? Oh, you got to do your disclosure thing, or what?
Let's do it at the end. I mean, we just put it on the end. That way, it's consistent with all the ones that we've done so far.
So check it out. Patty J says, Amar, upload more. We like you. Oops. We like you. All right, right on.
Thank you.
Patty J is also Amar's mom, by the way. So, and that's and Patty J also said, make sure Amar behaves. All right, so let's go into. So this is week 2 of our 13 wealth management issues. And if you see what I'm doing, I'm just looking over my dogs there. They're wrestling. Our 13-week wealth management masterclass. The first week was investments. Now we're going to talk about retirement plans. All right, we're going to go into that. And I got a nice little thing from the IRS. Amar's got a nice thing he'll share as well. But retirement plans are pretty interesting, as a matter of fact, because everyone, for the most part, is going to be covered by something. And not everybody, but for the vast majority of us, we are. And most of us will be covered by what's called a defined contribution plan, which we're going to talk a little bit about here. And again, this isn't all inclusive of everything. It's just kind of like an introduction, so you guys can get a gauge on this. I do get questions on this quite a bit, and I'm sure Amar does as well. And I think it'll be interesting. So anything to add to that, Amar?
No. You have the slides, right, with the defined contribution, the ones I sent you? Because mine are not loading here.
Oh, they're not? Okay, I can get them. But let's do this. What we're going to do first is we're going to go to share screen, and we're going to go over to the, types of retirement plans. So is that showing up on your end?
Yes.
All right, so this is straight from the horse's mouth. Finnegan, hey, you, big boy, big baby. I talked to a guy yesterday, Amar, who had a Mastiff or Mastiff who was 215 pounds.
Wow.
That's like 40 pounds more than me. I was like, how big was his poops, man? I mean, he must have pooped the size of freaking Pablo. You know what I'm saying? It's nuts.
That's a big dog.
That's a big dog.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously most people. All right, Finnegan. Yeah, let me see these little guys. Yeah, can you see that, Amar? You want to?
We can, yeah.
You want to talk a little bit? Hey,
yeah. So, I'm putting my notes that so there's basically two types of retirement plans. There's defined benefit and defined contribution. Defined contribution plans are the ones that are ERISA guided, and these are all ERISA guided plans here. So most people will have IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, 457, 403b. If you're a small business owner, you can have a simple IRA, SEP IRA, individual 401k as well. Then there are other plans that include profit sharing and other plans that are defined benefit plans, which are really around fixed of income.
I'm going the other way.
And those are the ones that are like discriminatory, where they're only for a certain group of people. Like think of highly compensated executives. And so those can fall into being, or those can be overfunded or underfunded. So sometimes those can fall into a trap of, you're in a pool of money with the rest of everybody else. And so they're not individual accounts. So most people, like Josh was saying, will have these accounts right here that they're listed above.
I'm having a hard time finding your thing here.
And let's just skip it. We'll just walk through and we'll just talk. Okay. I have all my notes here. So,
Gotcha. So let me, now that I got the big babies in this room, let me, all right. I was hoping the big babies would not bark like crazy, man. That's okay. All right. So I want to kind of go over. So remember, an IRA is what most people have. All right. But there are two types of IRAs. You got an IRA and a Roth. And these are without having to do with anything with employer-sponsored plans. Just you can contribute whatever, to the limits that you want. And now the question is, should you? Well, we're not getting at here today, but you have access as long as you have earned income. Earned income. You have to make a salary. It's not dividends. It's not rental real estate. It has to be earned income where you have to make a salary of some sort, 1099, self-employed, or a contractor, or it has to be W-2. And if you have either of those, you can contribute to an IRA or Roth. Hold on just a second. All right, good. Now, remember, a Roth, you do not have to have earned income to move money from an IRA or 401k to the Roth. So there's a lot of confusion, and Mar, you could probably agree with this. People think, well, I need to have a paycheck in order to convert money from an IRA to a Roth. No, you don't. You don't have to anymore. You used to have limits on your income and all that. You don't have. You used to have limits on your income. Those days are long since gone. So you can literally be Jeff Bezos, who just left Amazon, in theory, sitting on the beach, with his 20 chicks that he's spending $1 billion a year on, and you could be that guy and still move money from your Amazon 401k to your Roth IRA, even though you're just lounging on the beach. Just so keep that in mind. Roth IRA is different than an IRA in that you can have a Roth and fund it without having earned income. All right. So the two ways to fund a Roth: contributions, just like a regular IRA. You have to have earned income, a salary, or a 1099 as an independent contractor or self-employed, or conversions. And they're two separate, different paths to get money into a Roth IRA. So I just want to be clear there. A lot of people miss those two things up. Anything to add to that, Amar, on those two IRAs and Roths?
Yeah, no. And when you're specifically in retirement, you want to maximize the current tax bracket that you're in, but you also want to be careful for modified adjusted gross income that will affect your Medicare premiums, right? So you want to keep the tax limits in check, as well as where the limits are for modified adjusted gross income for your Medicare. And when you're converting, you don't want to trip either of those two up.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. Actually, good question. Is a severance package considered earned income? I don't think so, but I guess it could be if it's deferred income, deferred compensation, right?
Yeah, I believe it is in the sense that it will be on your W-2.
Yeah.
So it will count as earned income. And most severances include your previous holiday time, your unpaid sick leave. Oh, yeah, there you go.
So severance, there you go, severance paid. Now, actually, the question that I get a lot is deferred comp. Some deferred comp is subject to FICA, which would be considered earned income. Others is not. And it's always, whenever I talk to people in my financial planning, Amar, they're always like, hey, I got some deferred comp. Can I still contribute? I said, do you know if there's FICA taken out? And very few people do. You ever had that a case or anything like that, Amar?
Yeah, I know with a lot of executives that their deferred comp plans are structured. And I think the tail sign that there's no FICA if it's a non-qualified deferred comp. And that kind of leads into if those funds are considered earned income or just deferral of current income.
So if it's a non-qualified, it probably will have taxes, FICA taxes taken out.
Will not.
Well, not. Okay, gotcha. No, okay, not qualified. Okay, I was thinking not qualified. Okay, gotcha. Right.
Yeah, so the non-qualified plans are guided by the IRS 409A code, which has a different set of rules.
Oh, gotcha. That makes my head spin just even having heard that. I will never unhear that in my mind. Yeah. The IRS 409A code. We need more codes. All right, so let's talk about the big ones where it's a deferred contribution plans, 401k, 457, and you'll see 401k, 43B, and 457. We're going to talk mostly about 401ks and 403Bs here. Go ahead, Mom.
Yeah, so I think the key thing that differentiates these plans that Josh just mentioned versus other plans is that you have your employee contributions that are the 19.5 is the max, right? You have your employer contributions that could be your match that you receive, right? Like your 1/2 of 6% or 6%. And then you also have the employee after-tax contribution that you can put in, which in 2021 the max is $58,000 for the sum of all three of those.
Did you say 58,000?
Yeah, the sum is up to 58,000. So if you're putting 19.5 and you're getting another, let's say 5,500 in terms of a match, so your total in there is 25,000. You do 58 minus 25. You get 33,000 is the amount you can put in after tax into a qualified plans. And that's true for 401ks, 403Bs, and whatnot.
You have to be over 50 to get that much?
We all have a max of $58,000 that is ERISA-guided contributions. It just depends on how you put those contributions in there.
So if you're over 50, then you can put an extra, you can do more, right? Because of catch up and all that stuff.
But then it reduces how much after-tax contributions you can put in.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so still, that's a lot of flipping money, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I would like to dive into this a little bit more on the 401k plans in particular, because Amar does something that I think is pretty cool, which we're talking about. So tell them what you do on your own for your own business with your own 401k, Solo K at Fidelity, I think, that goes into a Roth and all that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, and this would be a longer video. Yes, the answer to that question is yes. So I believe tax rates are going to go up in the future. So when I retire, I want to have more tax-free money, my income coming from tax-free sources than taxable sources.
Yeah.
And so in my 401k plan, I have an option to do a Roth 401k contribution. And so I maxed that out. And then you can put up to that $58,000 amount that I just mentioned so you take the difference between the two and you can put that in the after-tax contribution. And then at the end of the week, you can convert that, just once the money has been deposited, you can convert that into the Roth 401k bucket. Because remember, the IRS has said that money that's in the after-tax portion, when you retire, the basis can go into a Roth and the gains have to go into an IRA. But if you convert it right away, there's no gains. And so that whole dollar amount will now grow tax deferred and tax free.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a smoking deal. Now, do you have to worry about the aggregate rules in that regard? The aggregation rules, you know what I'm talking about?
So,
like
no.
you get money in a deferred IRA and you're moving money to a Roth.
So this is a qualified plan. So it's all happening with it. It's not a Roth conversion. It's all in the qualified plan. So
the aggregation,
you have IRAs and
in a qualified plan, they only apply in an IRA to Roth conversion.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so that's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then that's all I was going to say.
Well, the point being is that I think a lot of business owners, and especially as we go more and more to people running independent contracting, that's the way of the future. There's lots of ways to get your Roth funded heavily, without really being any skid off your back for sure. And you're not obligated to keep doing every year. It's not like you're setting up a defined benefit plan, which we'll talk about. I mean, if you're making good money and you feel like Amar does that taxes are going up, which, the idea they're going down is silly. This would be something to really, really look at doing for sure. And you can do it really cost effectively now. Like, Amar, do you have like a solo 401k?
Yeah, like a solo 401k would probably cost you maybe $500 to set up and then maybe $250 a year for ongoing maintenance. But, and the key is you don't have to do all of it, right? Like you have the flexibility. So if you can only afford to put, $20,000 into a Roth, that's more than what most people put into a Roth, right? I mean, the IRS max is $6,000, and if you're over 50, there's $1,000 catch up for $7,000, right? So you're already doing more than what normal individuals can do through the guideline plans. So
that's
important. And Josh, are we allowed to draw on this? Does this allow us to draw or? Because what I wanted to show is that when you put money into a 401k plan, it's pre-tax going in.
I'm not sure, Amar. I'm sure it does. I just don't know how to do it. Sorry, man.
Yeah. I'm just going to use back of the paper and I'll just draw.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think we are like MacGyver. We're good improvisers here. Do you want to close the IRS screen?
Yep.
So
we'll hold on just a second. We're gonna hit stop. All right, there we go. All right, cool. Here we go.
So this is important to remember, right? So in a 401k, 457, 403b plan, you're putting money before taxes into the plan. You're not getting a 1099 each year, so it's growing tax deferred. But when you take money out, it's 100% taxable at ordinary income rates, right? So essentially, the money that you're putting in, this is growth. This is the money that you put in. I don't know if that comes across. You put money in as investments. You're hoping your investments grow over time. Right, but you're getting taxed on this whole dollar amount. What you put in, and the growth, right? And that is really in retirement planning. What you want to focus on is how much of that are you paying taxes on, and where.
Oh, hold on, Amar. I got my daughter Chloe and her friend Caitlin here. They just come back from lunch. They're juniors in high school, and they came by to say hello to the dog. So. And Finney smells Caitlin's got. Whoa, Finney! Whoa, Finney's smells Caitlin's dog, and he's going nuts. All right, so there they go. So all right, thanks, guys. All right, whoa, Finney's going nuts there. So that's all right. Woo, that was fun. I thought having kids was going to be a challenge. Having dogs is more of a challenge than kids any day of the week, man. Good night. All right, so you're back, Amar. You're back.
All right. And so the second thing here, so like the Roth 401k and why I like it so much is that you're putting after-tax money in, right? You're already paying the taxes now. It's growing tax deferred, and then it's tax-free, right? Even the gains, even your investment, the interest that's growing is going to come out tax-free. So the proper way in terms of planning, and I'm sorry, like the slides are not working, but yeah, just trying to write it real quick here. So if we needed 100,000 for lifestyle in retirement, right? So am I doing this backwards? So if you needed $100,000 a year in lifestyle in retirement, you would have to withdraw about 120,000 out for taxes. That's federal and state taxes. So you're roughly paying somewhere in about 20,000. Depending on what state you are, that could be different, right? But for illustration purposes here, if we took half of that from your IRA or your 401k, that would present, you're in a lower tax bracket now. So that would be roughly about 12,000 in taxes, right? To get 50,000. And then if we took 50,000 out of your Roth, well, there's no taxes on that. So you save roughly about 8,000 in taxes every year that you're in retirement if you structure your retirement portfolio in IRA, pre-tax, and post-tax investments.
Oh, man, I'm not. Someone just tooted, and it wasn't me. Oh my goodness. All right, so a couple things to think about when it comes to Roth. Like I live in Georgia. Georgia is actually quite tax friendly once you hit 65. It's not tax friendly from an income tax perspective if you're under 65 and you're making any kind of money. It's just not. So the drawback about the Roth is that if you're going to move to a tax-free state and you're living in a taxable state, i.e. Georgia versus an hour and a half north in Tennessee, it might not be as worthwhile to do a Roth because you're living in a high tax state relative to where you could be in the future, if that makes sense. A lot of people, it was a girl's friend. Woo! Yeah. A lot of people will have these, kind of elaborate Roth conversion strategies. And I'm like, you just kind of throw it out the window. The best thing you can do is just throw it into is just move to Tennessee or Texas or Nevada. I was talking to some folks from Colorado the other day, and I was like, go to Texas or Nevada, and you're going to save yourself boatloads of money without even having to do any Roth conversions. Just move. The drawback, frankly, is with California, New York, more and more states, their long tentacles of tax revenue could chase you around a little bit. In fact, Rush Limbaugh talks about that. I don't know if he still does anymore, but when he moved to Florida, the tentacles of New York were auditing him even when he had lived in Florida for many, many moons. And, these states, the point is don't ever step into these states to begin with. But if you're already there and think about moving, you just might want to hang tight. It's always a challenge to see what the best way to go is. It's tough for sure. But even Georgia, even southern states, man, people are like, I'm going to live in the South. It's cheap. Well, yeah, it's cheap, but they still tax you. I mean, other than Tennessee and Florida, you still pay an income tax. Yeah. And if you're thinking about coming to Alabama and having low taxes, and it might not be as cheap as you think. That's for sure. Puerto Rico here, CEO of Facts says Puerto Rico has 0% federal, 4% local, and 0% capital gains. Oh man, hey, it's Ned Meyerson. Look at that from Groundhog Day. Ned Meyerson wants to sell us some life insurance. Remember Ned Meyerson from Bill Murray's Groundhog?
Bill Murray's, yeah. And we just had the Groundhog's Day yesterday, right? Yeah, so
absolutely.
Let's answer some of these questions here, Josh. Teresa says, "Is the money you do in a conversion from your 401k, is there RMD required on the conversion?" No, Roth IRAs do not have an RMD requirement. However, if you pass on, your surviving spouse may have an RMD requirement, and that's based off of age.
Well, let me elaborate a little bit on that too. Is that you can't convert your RMDs either. So if you're over the age of 72, and who knows, maybe 75, and you got 20,000 of RMDs, you can't put those. You literally can't convert those RMDs to satisfy the IRS.
Yeah, and I'll go to the next slide that I'm doodling here in a bit. Can you take penalty free from a Roth? So when you're over, for most plans, most 401k plans, if you're 57 or older, you can do an in-service distribution.
Yeah, where'd you see that? Oh, right there. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, right on. Mm-hmm.
And when you do an in-service distribution, you can move that money to a individual retirement plan. So if you had pre-tax, you move it to an IRA. If you have a Roth 401k, you move it to a Roth IRA. You can take money out at that point. And so I guess the question is the answer too. There's a lot of administrative rules, so it's plan specific. But if you have in-service distributions, that's a way to get around that rule for distributions.
And I actually the administrator of these plans is actually a big deal. As during the whole CARES Act thing, I was getting not an argument, but a guy was challenging me that about the ability to take the $100,000 on the CARES Act and all that. I said, and he said, it's long story short, his administrator did not allow him to do it. And he felt that the IRS didn't allow him to do it. So no, it's not the IRS. It's your planning document. They haven't changed it. And a lot of administrators did not. And that's the drawback with some of these firms, smaller 401k plans and defined contribution plans on the whole, because they don't want to have to change the rules and regulations a lot. So a lot of times it's just almost an off the shelf. And if your administrator doesn't allow it, it's not going to happen. But more and more in-service, well, hell, we got a lot of 401k plans that don't even offer a Roth contingent. That's starting to become less and less, finally. And more administrators are starting to allow in-service distributions as well, but it's really contingent on your plan. Yeah. Right here, Loa, I need to work on getting more of my money to a Roth. Most of my money is in a post-tax brokerage account. Yeah, so I'm like, you got to be careful there, Lola, because we don't want you to sell. Like, let's say you have VTI and you have $100,000 in there, and only 75,000 is your cost basis. Just be careful before you move $6,000 a year from that VTI post-tax account into a Roth, assuming you have income, because there might be some tax gains there for sure. You just got to be careful on that. But no, a Roth is by all means is better than a taxable account, which in my opinion is better than a deferred account for sure.
And I think the key here is that when you're in retirement, if you have a lot of money in this post-tax brokerage account, every year you're going to get a 1099, right? So if that same savings that you're doing there can be diverted into a Roth, you won't generate a 1099 each year. And I think that's important for tax planning as well.
Jeremy, question about RMDs, I presume on Roth. So elaborate on that some, because I mean, there's RMDs on Roth for spouses. Talk about that. I'm not sure where you're going with that.
So if you're the primary owner, there's no required minimum distribution in the Roth. But if you pass on and your spouse inherits the funds, which I can pull up here. Let me pull up the thing here. Because with the Secure Act, it is different.
So you're saying for a Roth IRA or 401k? Because I'm not familiar.
The Roth 401k does not have RMDs either. There's not. We need to specify.
Roth 401k does have RMDs, but what I'm saying is a Roth IRA is an inherited spouse. You're saying there's RMD? I don't think that's true. Let's confirm that. I don't believe that to be true. I might be wrong, but let's confirm that. So just FYI, a non-spouse beneficiary, folks, will have RMDs. That's a fact. But a spousal beneficiary, I'm not sure. So he's going to pull that up. Roy, PR has no federal representation. Well, it'll probably change here shortly, right? All right. So while Amar is looking that up, For someone who has an inherited IRA, can they contribute to a Roth IRA? They cannot contribute to an inherited Roth IRA, Chicken Charlie. But if you have your own earned income, you absolutely could to your own IRA. So remember, inherited IRA is its own unique account. You can still absolutely contribute to your own Roth IRA, as long as you have earned income, W-2, 1099, earned income. You can always convert, but you can never. The inherited IRA is its own separate entity, if that makes sense. You find anything there, Amar?
Yeah. So if you're like so there's, and this was another slide I was going to say that we should do, but if you're a beneficiary of an IRA, regardless of the type of IRA, Roth IRA, rollover IRA, SEP IRA, simple, so any IRAs, there's now 3 different designations of beneficiaries. The first designation is called eligible designated beneficiary. These could be minor children. These could be individuals that have disabilities or that are chronically ill. They can't be 10 years younger than the original owner of the account, or spouses and specific types of trusts qualify as eligible designated beneficiaries. They can still stretch their RMDs as a beneficiary. The next type of beneficiary is called a designated beneficiary. Those beneficiaries are like non-spouses, so think of your children or specific types of trusts. Those individuals have a 10-year distribution of those accounts from those IRA type accounts. So if your beneficiaries are your children, and they have 10 years to distribute the money out of that account. So they can do it in 1 year, they can do it in 2 years, they can do it in 3 years, 10 years, right? They have to just deplete it in that 10-year time period. The third type of beneficiary is a non-designated beneficiary, and this is the normal non-designated beneficiary, which is, if you name your estate or if you name a trust or a charity, they have 5 years to take that distribution.
Yeah, I don't think a spouse has an RMD on a Roth. I don't think that's true. I don't. You didn't confirm that, did you? Because I've never heard that. Huh? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well,
not on a Roth, because the owner of the Roth has no RMD. So
the spouse does, though.
I don't think so.
If you're a beneficiary.
All right. Well, we'll table that for now. We'll Amar and I will go into a cage match. Fight that. So I don't know what HNWI is. High net worth. I don't know. I'm not sure what HNWI is. So yeah, whoever said HNWI. All right. So Betsy says she's 60, almost would like to have 6% of my total assets in a Roth. I would like to build that up. Yeah, absolutely. All right, top of that. Okay, cool. All right, good. So let's doubting Josh. Yeah, don't doubt me. Don't doubt me. But it was, I mean, look, man, I've been wrong many, many, many times. I don't have any qualm with that. In this case, I don't think I am. But
if the spouse, so if the owner's taking above RMD age, then the spouse will have to take RMDs. If the owner is not above RMD age, then the spouse can make it their own, and then they won't have RMDs. So it depends on the age of the owner when they pass.
I don't think on a Roth, because there's no RMDs on a Roth to begin with, and that's the issue. So that's.
Yeah, but there is after.
After what?
After you pass on.
To the spouse. That's what I don't think there is. So we're gonna have to cage match. We're gonna have to.
All right, we'll cage match.
Yeah, I don't think. And by the way, when I'm typing comments here, it's going to come up me, Heritage Wealth Planning, and Client First. So that's basically me on behalf of Amar, but it's not him typing, it's me, because I don't know how to. I mean, I just got to stream into these 3 simultaneous YouTube channels. So this one would be one where Amar and I just differ right here. So even though it says Client First Cap, for any compliance people out there, that's me, not Amar saying that. All right. Let's keep going. So,
all right. So this is the next slide that I created. So basically, there's 3 different periods of time where you can take a distribution from an IRA and a retirement plan. The first is when you're age 18 to 59 and a half. Those are called premature distributions. They have a 10% penalty. Then from 59 and a half to age 72, that's kind of like your window of opportunity where you can do Roth conversions and not have or do distributions from your IRA and take that, and it doesn't affect your RMD because you're not taking RMDs at this time period. But there's 2 ages in here. You'll have full retirement age, which you'll have additional income, and then you'll have at 70 and a half, if you're charitably inclined, you qualify to do qualified charitable distributions at that point. And then at 72, you have to take RMD. You're in RMD land, is what I call it. And that's where there's an IRS table where you have to take distributions every year based off of the previous year-end balance.
Gary, can you convert part of your IRA to Roth you already own? Absolutely.
Yes. And you would want to do that because if you open a new Roth, you could trigger a 5-year rule on the new Roth, right? So you want to go to the oldest Roth that you own and contribute to that one.
Betsy, let's if you don't mind, if you're gonna look, I appreciate what you're saying. I'd rather people didn't know what your income was, given that you have a pretty unique name there. So I'm gonna delete this comment. I just noticed that. The reason being, not that I can't delete it. Damn. Okay, I'm not sure how to delete it. Let's not have that kind of info on the streams for YouTube, if that makes sense. So you could say, is Betsy K in the house or something like that? But anyway, at the end of the day, if you're married filing jointly with that kind of money, you're automatically in the 22% tax bracket. I'm not sure if Roth conversions are the way to go, which is crazy because I literally wrote the book on Roth conversions. But it's funny. I've been probably 80% of the time, the folks who hire me, I've been telling them I don't think it's worth it. And the reason being, because I don't think you should pull money forward unless there's a significant benefit on the back end. So what I mean by pulling money forward, you're basically saying for every $50,000 I convert, I'm already in the 22% tax bracket. It's cost me $11,000. Is that worth it? That's a challenge for sure. Now, given the fact you're married, one of the things we're trying to avoid is the widow's tax trap for sure. And that's the benefit of doing the Roth conversions. But at the end of the day, we want to travel lightly there because there's it's not as cut and dry as for other folks that deal with, that's for sure.
And it depends on your situation, right? Like also like if legacy planning is a big thing and then you're thinking about your children and everything else, then paying the taxes now, they may get a smaller gift, but that gift is tax free, right? And so that legacy component. The 2 things I wanted to just say here is that at age 55, you can also qualify for simple equal periodic payments. So if you want to retire before 59 and a half and you're worried about the penalty here, there is a way to get money out without having that penalty. The second thing is that if you work for a company and you have company stock, you really need to make sure that you track the cost basis of that company stock. Now, most of the time, the administrator will do it for you, or they'll do something where they'll put your funds into a share of the company stock, and then upon retirement, they'll give you the actual stock. The idea would be to separate the stock from the actual 401k, and that's called a net unrealized asset rollover or process, in the sense that you'll get separate checks for your pre-tax money, which will go into an IRA, and then you can pay ordinary income tax on your cost basis of the stock that you own.
Yeah.
Put that in an after-tax account, and then one day later, it's considered long-term capital gains. And I know a lot of individuals that have company stock, they tend to want to keep it, and they may want to have a strategy that over time that they're reducing their exposure, and having it in a taxable account gives you more options versus an IRA. And obviously long-term capital gains today for most people is going to be lower than ordinary income tax.
All right, so real quick, so if you guys don't mind to help the algorithm, is Gary a veteran? Yes. All right, so we already answered that. Oh man, you answered too quick. So Gary is a veteran. Someone said, Gary, I can tell you're a veteran by your mustache. All right, gotcha. So I'm retired after over 34 years of military service. All right, so what branch? So everybody say what branch they think Gary is. Don't say it yet, Gary, because this will help with the algorithm. What branch? All right, so say for all of you who see old Gary there, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps is part of the Navy, but still say USMC, and then Coast Guard. I'm going with Air Force. So what do y'all say? So we'll come back to that later. All right, so we got another question from let's see, Chicken Charlie. All right, Charlie's a chicken. He says, I'm self-employed but lost my business in March. Freaking and my wife is still working. Can I contribute to my solo 401k based on my income from last year, Amar? That's a good question.
Yes.
All right, cool. So based on
you'd want to you can only max it to your earned income from that business. So January, March.
At the end of the calendar year, it can be you can go back, till tax filing deadline.
Yeah, till your tax filing deadline. Yeah.
Good question. That's a good question. Space Force. Jim says Gary was in the Space Force. Oh man. All right. Army for sure. Yeah, that's what. All right. Okay, gotcha. So a good question. So the answer, of course, was that you could. It could be, I say retroactive, but up until your tax filing deadline. Oh man, right here. Vic says he's thinking about doing approximately $80,000 a year, and Roth conversions wipes away the income levels. Vic also said about you got to be careful. I want to real quick. I noticed Vic said something else. That one thing about Roth conversions when you have Obamacare does kill your subsidies. That's a big deal, folks. I work with a lot of people, and one of the negatives, again, of doing Roth conversions is that once you go above that threshold, whatever is it, 4 times poverty level, 400% over poverty level, it literally is a steep cliff. You're going from having $35, $50 a month in Obamacare premiums to like freaking $1,500 a month. It's nuts. It's a challenge there, man. And the nice thing about the Obamacare premiums, like it or the subsidies, like it or love it, we didn't vote for it. It just was put on us. But be it as it may, it's the law of the land. Is that's some serious savings immediately. Immediately, the Roth conversions might not be savings at all, and they might only be recognized many, many years in the future. You gotta be very careful with those Obamacare subsidies. Don't go above 400% of the poverty level. And if you're married, if you're single, it ain't much, man. Off the top of my head, I think it's like $68,000 or $58,000 for married. So I assume it's about half that for single. You just gotta be careful there. Approach that with caution. Navy has you think this guy says Navy has a different mustache. All right, so Amar, you had another thing there. Another chart?
No, I don't have another made up slide. No.
All right. Let me go back to the IRS stuff because I want to. All right. So I want to go back. Yeah, here we go. I want to talk about simple and SEPs as well. I don't know. I don't come across too many people doing simple plans anymore. A lot of dentists used to do simple plans. I don't know if they still do that much. A SEP IRA is interesting. Actually, now that you can do an individual 401k, the individual K is much, much better. But anything you want to talk about on SEPs and simples, Amar?
Yeah, if you have so in a SEP, you have to give to everybody that's part of your business. Yeah. In a simple, your employees have to contribute. And then you can match their contributions. So depending on the size of your business and what you want to do in terms of giving a benefit, those two plans, there's a big line in the sand to differentiate. One thing I would say, though, is that if you're looking at a SEP and you believe, like me, that taxes will go up, then you may want to consider the solo 401k.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because, you have the after-tax option, and the other thing is that you can take a loan if you needed in an emergency situation from a 401k, which you can't from an IRA.
Man, great. And on top of that, Can you separate from service 55 and beyond, keep your solo 401k and have access to that money without a penalty, unlike a SEP? You see what I'm saying? Because you can in a traditional 401k plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, you can do simple equal periodic payments.
Not even that. Not even that. Just, the post 50, if you're 55 and beyond and you separate from service after 50, once you're 55 or older, and you keep your money in your previous employer's plan, you have access to that without paying a penalty, a 10% penalty. It's one of the 72T, the exceptions to the penalty. I would imagine the same thing on an individual 401k, right?
Yep, because it's an employer-sponsored plan. Now, the only wrinkle there I'd say is that you're still paying admin fees, but I mean, it's like $250 a year. It's not.
So you had said too that you could borrow against it, which is, I think, actually huge. I think a lot of people inherently say, "Don't ever borrow." I completely disagree. Yeah, you just more flexibility in the solo 401k for sure. I just remember the simple plans they did have. If the employee did not contribute, the dentist wasn't responsible for making the contribution on behalf of the employee. But it's just you're limited how much you can put in. It wasn't that much. And I remember the SEP was a nice alternative, but now they got the individual 401ks, and it just is better. Are you not just on individual 401ks, Mar? Are you the administrator on just regular 401ks by chance?
Yeah, we use Fidelity.
Can you be the guy though in charge of that for a client?
Yeah. I mean, we don't do a ton of those, but yeah, that is available.
The reason I say is because a lot of the dentists, I used to do the individual 401ks, not individual 401ks, but 401ks for dentists at American Funds. And it's just a safe harbor. And I think safe harbor is like 3% of a salary. So you got the hygienist, at least in Virginia, the hygienists make pretty good money. But most of the people in the dental office don't make that much money. And so, $30,000 a year, you're putting, $900 in for the safe harbor. But the dentist, him or herself, could put a boatload of money in there. Like what we just talked about, $58,000. And so all you were out of pocket, and you can deduct that as a business expense too, as $900 or whatever it was.
So there's a question here. SEP is for self-employed individuals. It's not for if you're a W-2 employee.
Right. Simplified employee pension. Isn't that what it's called? Isn't that the terminology for the SEP? Simplified employee pension, I think. Yeah, right there. Simplified employee pension. It says it right there. Okay. Nancy says, did you say doing the NUA that the cost basis you pay taxes as regular income when you put it into your brokerage account?
That's correct. Right. So, I'll give you a story. So I once worked with a client.
I'm just going to check on him. Keep going, Amar.
That had 100,000 of company stock, and then 500,000 in their 401k. So the total is 600,000. That 100,000 had a cost basis of 20,000. So we were able to take that out of the IRA into their brokerage account. They paid ordinary income taxes on 20,000 of income, and then they rolled over the 500,000 into an IRA. So there, the IRA, you have RMDs based off the 500,000. You don't have it on the other half, and then the other half, now you have long-term capital gains if you were to sell some of the company stock. The other thing is that when you have a large company stock position, you probably want to lock in that value of that concentrated position. So if you wanted to use options, for example, in a taxable account, you have a lot more flexibility to use options. In an IRA, you have to keep that amount in cash that the option would use to lock in that value. And so you have a lot more flexibility on that side.
Yeah, JK is an E5 USMC, so you might want to get your crayons out, Amar. E5 USMC. So you have colored crayons by chance? And there's Jack. I'm not sure if that's the same guy. Jack's going to come kick my butt. So let's see here. So we asked Gary what branch he was. SEP, we talked about that. All right, back to the RMD conversion controversy. Does the Roth withdrawal still apply if you no longer work for the company? I'm not following what that question is. Do you understand what she's asking?
I don't. I think that so there are no RMDs on a Roth 401k or Roth IRA.
Yeah, there are RMDs on a Roth 401k. Absolutely. There's definitely RMDs on a Roth 401k without
But
question.
you just roll it over to a Roth IRA.
That's right. Well, that's what you do. But
okay, so there's a way to get around the RMDs on a Roth 401k by putting it into a Roth IRA. The controversy that Josh and I were talking about was essentially if you pass away with a Roth IRA and your spouse is the beneficiary, and Josh and I will go look this up, but I think you have two options. If you're below the RMD age when you pass, then your spouse can make that Roth IRA their own, and then there's no RMDs. But if you're above the RMD age, then your spouse will have to take RMDs as an eligible designated beneficiary.
Gary was in the Air Force and the Army National Guard. There we go. So Gary, you solved that riddle. No one was right. No one picked that out. Too bad. I was going to give you guys free Amar's free book. I was going to give. Speaking of which, you ever going to work on a book, Amar, or what, man?
Probably not really, and I don't think so. No.
Books are a pain in the butt. I like them, but they are not as easy to do as I would have thought. All right, so let's talk about. I want to talk about defined benefit plans. All right, so defined benefit plans. If I Air National Guard. I thought it was Army National Guard. Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. It probably is Air National Guard. Right on, Jeremy. Those boys from Maine know a thing or two. All right, so. Defined benefit plans. For the love of the good Lord, my friends. I was debating a guy today. I forgot who it was earlier, but I was like, dude, can we stop this idea that everyone and their mom had freaking solid pension plans in the previous years? It simply is fake. It's fake. It's fake. There's the reason we have 401ks, defined contribution plans to begin with, is because the pensions were not funded in the 60s and going into the early 70s. And that's why we transitioned from the DB plans, the defined benefit plans, which is a pension plan, to the defined contribution plans. Do not allow these people to sit there and say, oh, we just need to go back to the days of pensions. That's foolish behavior. It's stupid, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It ticks me off. The reason they're doing that is because they don't want you in control of your money. And the best thing about a defined contribution plan is it allowed me to start my business. Why? Because I was in control of my money, and I was able to take a $130,000 distribution, $100,000 for financing, $30,000 for freaking taxes and penalty to start this sucker. I would not have been able to do that with a defined benefit. So on top of that, there is something called PBGC, and someone was telling me yesterday that's only like 24% funded or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Amar, but I was like, damn,
pension plan guaranteed. Yeah.
If the PBGC is hurting and your own pension is hurting, we got problems. That's fact. So you were going to say, so go ahead, Amar, take the mic here, man.
No, I didn't. I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to say that if you are in a business where it's just you and your spouse or something like that, you may want to look at a defined benefit plan if you're highly compensated to store more money away for yourself. And I think the big thing is to focus on, if you're going to have employees, then you're not going to want to have that liability, and you're going to go towards a defined contribution plan. And so, yeah, that's it.
A lot of dentists, going back to dentists, they can shield a boatload of money in a defined benefit plan. It's nuts, actually. Let's just put it this way: if you're self-employed and you're making bank, that might be something you do. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I actually, going back to somebody had said in here, Lola, I won't be able to find it, but she had mentioned that she has most of her money in post-tax accounts. Me too. I mean, I'm 100% okay with post-tax accounts. I think there's a lot of defined benefit plans with census data you got to put in there. Lots going on. It was very attractive to me as a young broker because if I could take a dentist who had excess cash and move them to a 401k plus a defined benefit plan on both of them, That's pretty That's pretty attractive, but that takes a lot of cash to make it work, and there's a lot of commitments. And frankly, a lot of those dentists, it's going to be tough to make those numbers work for a significant amount of time. So before you run out and say, I need a defined benefit plan, I'm telling you, man, proceed with caution. They're not all as cracked up to be. And there's plenty with Kentucky, Illinois, New Jersey. These are government defined pension plans, defined benefit plans, and they're all hurt for sure. There's no other way around that. There's going to be a come to Jesus moment for some of these places.
I think so, because like a lot of these pension plans have over delivered, benefits, and they're underfunded,
yep.
right? And so
100%.
I know, like United Technologies Corporation, right? Their pension is 94% funded. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
But now you can get that number for your pension by talking to the pension plan administrator to find out the percentage that they're funded.
I was talking to a guy yesterday, a union, which will go nameless. You basically pay like $600 or $800 a month for 20 years. Then you get a huge amount of benefits. I was like, that's no different Social Security. It's like a Ponzi scheme. At some point, though, there's not enough money to fund it. So here's my man, Hollywood Baby. He gets 82.5% of his annual salary in his defined benefit plan after 30 years, 2.75%, and he works with the fire department. The problem with that is I guarantee, look, you're just dealing with the rules. I guarantee Hollywood Baby probably did some serious OT in those last 3 years, Amar, and made that salary look good. And now he's probably going to get a $100,000 pension with a cost of living adjustment. And there's no money. The state of California and his municipality doesn't have the money for that. And I'm not blaming the guy. He's got to do what he's got to do. But those days are over, man. Very few people are going to be in the government. The private sector is already done. Very few people in the government are going to be able to do that anymore because there isn't the money. There isn't. And on top of that, the Ponzi scheme works as long as there's a new flow of cash coming in. The minute the cash stops because there's no new flow, i.e. we have an older population with fewer and fewer employees coming in, we're going to have a big, big problem. So just be advised. Yeah, right. That's funny. When did that happen, Pulverizer? Teamsters pension went kaput. Was that recently? Because that was a pension I was talking about, Teamsters. It is funny because the guy's like, I said, why did you take a survivor benefit? And the guy told me he didn't want to take a survivor benefit because he didn't think the Teamsters pension was going to be long for this world. So it looks like PBGC is in charge. And if you look like airline pilots, they're getting, they were promised $6,000, $7,000 a month, and they're getting $3,400 PBGC. PBGC is not funded well. United Airlines, Chicago, the whole thing's just it's a ball of, it's built on sand. All right, so 3 to 4 years ago, right on. Okay, there you go. So Teamsters pension 3 to 4 years ago, over promised and under delivered. Just real quick, so some folks, and probably not anyone here, they're going to jump on, I'm going to work for the government. I want a big pension. Man, I'm telling you, man, think twice, think 3 times. I think the best way to generate wealth nowadays going forward is to be your own boss. I was reading an article yesterday. It was on Medium. You ever read Medium, Amar, by chance?
No, I know what it is, though.
Yeah, it's a million different bloggers. Most I don't like, but there's some real good ones. And this guy's actually pretty good. A young guy, too. He said the best way to build wealth is to own your own business. And I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, we're going to go into a society of independent contractors. And I actually think that's good for freedom because that means people are in charge of their own destiny, essentially. I think it's bad for there's a good book called Who Stole My Pension? Interesting. I'd have to check that out. I think the more self-employed people we have, the more independent-minded, more entrepreneurial, and the less reliant on big daddy government. I think it'd be a good thing. Hollywood Baby says he works for DeKalb County. All right. Yeah, well, here we go. Jim says, I noticed I might need a new CPA and CFP. Do you use Right Capital? No. Amar, how much software do you use?
No, I use eMoney, which is a Fidelity product. And most of my planning is around, connecting the dots between income that you need, taxes, and estate planning. So eMoney just happens to be a better software for those pieces.
eMoney from a estate plan perspective is awesome. There's no other way around it. I used eMoney before I came to my own firm. Right Capital is one step below it, but for the fee, it was significantly worth it because eMoney ain't cheap. And then Fidelity bought out eMoney, and I was kind of worried about eMoney going downstream. I don't think that eMoney is fantastic.
That is expensive.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
But my planning is mostly around tax planning. Right Capital is fantastic. I don't know what when I was using eMoney, it didn't hold a candle to Right Capital. On the tax side, on estate planning, Right Capital did not hold a candle to eMoney. On estate planning, on investments, eMoney was better too. But at the end of the day, tax planning, Right Capital is great, but eMoney is fantastic. That's what Amar uses. And again, I was worried. I thought Fidelity Amar would go downstream because do they give it to the mass audience or probably not? I don't know. Yeah, you don't know.
You have to be an advisor to use it.
Yeah.
And I think Right Capital has a portal where clients and advisors can work together, right? Go back and forth. eMoney doesn't have that. That's 100% advisor driven. And I think for most people, that's probably better because you could misinput something and that could throw a lot of the calculations off within the software because it's so finicky in terms
Actually, I do want to make a point, and I can't recommend Amar, all right? But if you are interested in Amar, I just can't because of compliance stuff. If you're interested in Amar's service, so let's just say my man Jim was interested. If you've got the right capital through me, that's great. But if you're gonna, work with Amar, you need to use what he has because Amar won't have his same inputs that I have, and the software is different. And I cannot stress this enough. I had a guy show me his financial plan from another firm that will go nameless, and I said I just don't agree with that at all because the inputs are different. And that doesn't mean they're wrong or I'm right, but if I'm blessing you, my son, with my seal of approval on your financial plan, it's not going to be based on someone else's stuff. It's going to be based on my own. And just as an FYI, for any of you guys who are considering Amar and you have Right Capital, do yourself a favor and say, let me use your software to Amar, and I can compare the two. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
My man says Teamsters are still paying, but they're going to run out of money. Yeah, exactly. That's what my man, who is part of the Teamsters union, was saying. That's why he did not do a survivor benefit. They've been, of course, several times to try to cut benefits to retirees. See, that friggin' pisses me off, man. I mean, the union guy, this is where the union guy ticked me off. I'm like, wait a second. You guys promised these benefits, but now you're not holding up your end. And then whenever the people in the government say, whenever the people who run the unions for the government say we can't pay those benefits, everyone screams bloody murder, but the unions aren't doing the same thing. It's annoying. I work with a guy who lost his company pension in the 80s because his company owned and the company was sold. The new owners took all the money out of the pension fund. Right here. Freaking Mittens, man. Mittens. Freaking can't stand that guy. Jeez Louise. I cannot believe, I tell you, I've been so red-pilled, man. Freaking Mitt Romney. And kiss my big fat behind. I made right here. Lola says, I'm assuming it's a she, unless it's the Kinks version of Lola. Lola. Everybody now, Amar, Lola. All right. That doesn't warrant a smile. Amar's too young. I can hear Pablo scream bloody murder over there. I make almost as much from my side business of licensing software as I do for my full-time job, and spend maybe a fourth of the time on my side business. Man, I salute you, Lola. That's freaking fantastic. That's fantastic. So that's why if you're a couple years out of your crappy old job, and you're like, I got 2 to 3 more years, start thinking about that side hustle, man. Like Amar and I, when we both had worked at USAA, I remember driving in the commute from Atlanta, Buckhead up here to Alpharetta, and we just chat like, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to go on our own? Blah, blah, blah. Just planning. And you just got to plan when you leave. That way you just don't jump off a cliff. You have something kind of built around that you can go into something without just starting from scratch. Start from scratch is too risky. So take the time that you're working a crappy old job to find something that you enjoy. Start a blog. So I don't even give 2 craps what it is. Start something that's a planning where you can say, hey, man, when I leave this company, I got a smooth ramp to run into, because if you don't, it's going to be challenged. All right, so a couple more here.
Can I post the disclosures here?
Please do. Right on.
Well, you have to do it.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
I shared it. And
all right. So there's the disclosures. I hope y'all can see that. I'm sure it's readable.
basically, this is all for educational purposes. You know, like you have to look at your own specific situation, and we're just trying to give you. We're not giving specific recommendations or advice. Essentially, what it says.
All right, so last question here is Kit Kat. She says, I understand at age 72, I'm forced to take mandatory distributions. What can I do with mandatory distributions to keep the money growing? You want to chat on that, and then we'll call it a day there, Amar?
Yeah, I mean, those distributions you could put into a taxable brokerage account, and you could still have that grow. And most people want to do that because if you have pensions or other sources of income, you want to spend that down first before you touch some of the RMD money. Once your after-tax bucket grows, then you have an ability to get a step up in cost basis. Yep.
Yeah, we both worked at USA, and Jason Proctor, who works with Amar, who does Fighting Words Financial as well, worked at USA. I bash USA a lot, but USA for me was fantastic as a financial planner. I came to USA, I thought I knew everything in a bag of chips, and it turned out I knew nothing. I left USA. One of the best financial planners in the business. And I would say the same thing. I can't say the same thing for Amar because it'd be considered a
endorsement.
Yeah, however, if you worked in wealth management at USA, I can assure you, anyone who worked in wealth management at USA is head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd because it was just an amazing training, without question. It is the best training for financial planners I've ever witnessed by far.
And I think USA did a good job of making sure that we were focusing on clients.
Yes.
Right? And so for individuals like Josh and myself, we were able to step back and say, like, how can we do this better for clients? And, now we're able to do that now since USA has gotten out of the business.
Every business, reaches its peak and then starts to decline. And I think USA Wealth Management did, and that's why I left, and Amar left, and ultimately the whole business has been bought out by Charles Schwab. But for the 15-year time frame there, it was fantastic. No other way around that. And but things change. Let's see. USA is my priority, my primary bank. Yeah, right on. All right, so we'll get you guys out of here. Amar, muchas gracias. 2 weeks. All right, so 2 things. Go to Amar's Client First Capital Learning. Client First Capital Learning is Amar's Client First Capital Learning, right, Amar?
Yep, that's my YouTube channel.
Subscribe to his YouTube channel, please. We really want to get that to $1,000, 1,000 subscribers, so he can start making that sweet YouTube money. 2 weeks, we're gonna. What's the topic we're doing in 2 weeks, Amar? I forgot.
I have that somewhere else. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it is like distribution strategies.
Ooh,
in retirement, like taking income, like different ways to take income streams from investments. I believe
that's that like button, like my man Jeremy says. Right? Yeah, distribution strategies. That might be a 2-parter, to be honest with you, because this actually goes quicker than I thought. So. That might be a two strategy thing where we do 2 weeks of distribution strategies because there's a lot going on there. All right,
yeah,
and we'll find out if we'll find out what's the deal with surviving spouses on Roth IRAs, and we'll just know. I mean, we're gonna find out one way or the other.
And we'll post it on here so everybody there's transparency. It's perfectly clear.
Exactly. Amar, more videos. Let's get cracking. So remember, Amar has promised us 2 to 3 videos a week. So Patty is going to come to your house and freaking drop kick you, Amar, if you don't. All right, guys, I got to get ready for an appointment here. I got 2 dogs barking at me. We'll see you later, Amar. I'll talk to you after my next appointment. All right.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you guys.